An American teacher's back home after more than 3 years in a Russian prison. Mark Fogel arrived in the U.S. last night for the first time since 2021, with President Trump welcoming him at the White House. Now the U.S. is preparing to return a cybercrime kingpin back to Russia as part of the exchange. ABC News State Department reporter Shannon Kingston joins me with the latest on all that. Hi, Shannon. So President Trump just posted on social media about having a lengthy phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. What can you tell us? What sticks out to you about that conversation?
Well, Diane, there's been speculation for weeks now about just how much communication is happening between President Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin. But really, Trump laid all of his cards out on the table. He said just moments ago he got off the phone after what he called a lengthy, productive conversation with Putin. Just now, he laid out a laundry list of things they talked about: the war in Ukraine, artificial intelligence, the Middle East, and yes, Mark Fogel, that prisoner who came home last night. And really, he said he's not done working the phones now. He's going to pick up his phone and call Ukrainian President Zelensky and fill him in on everything they discussed. So all in all, this is really indicative of a broader diplomatic thaw between Russia and the U.S., but this is also going to raise a lot of red flags for supporters of Ukraine who think the Trump administration may put pressure on Kyiv to agree to unfair terms to end the war, which of course was started by Russia's invasion.
Now, State Department officials say that this isn't the first time the U.S. has offered to include Alexander Vinnik in a trade with Russia. So what makes this time different?
That's right. State Department officials who've been working on this across administrations say that it seems likely that's what's changed here. Really, it's not so much the offer on the table, but the Kremlin's calculus, the circumstances, that it's very possible Russia senses with Trump in the White House, they might be able to get, a better deal going forward on the war with Ukraine and other matters. So that's going to be something to watch very closely, because even though it is typical, Diane, that when these delicate negotiations are happening, U.S. officials often don't say much because they don't want to jeopardize a potential deal. Usually there's a little more clarity after the fact, and we still don't have that right now.
Shannon, the Trump administration also says another American will be released from Russia's custody. What more do you know about that?
That's right, Diane, and they're also being very quiet about that, but I did just get a ping from a source who said we should know more soon. There are a number of Americans who are in Russian custody for dubious allegations or petty crimes and have been sentenced to very long amounts of time behind bars. So it is possible it could be another American from Russia, but there could be a lot of other Americans freed as well, so we just don't know yet. But it is clear that just like the Biden administration, the Trump administration is prioritizing bringing Americans home. Secretary Rubio said today that already in just a few short weeks that Trump has been in office, 10 Americans have come home. But of course, many of those were cases that were resolved because of efforts both administrations put in.
So, Shannon, what sticks out to you about these administrations and the way they deal with Russia? Is it similar? Is it different? How do you compare them? And what does that mean for negotiations over the war in Ukraine going forward?
Well, every time the Biden administration cut a deal to bring an American home that was held by the Kremlin, they said that this was a very different process from any other of the range of issues they have with Moscow. And they always said it was a very difficult decision. Meanwhile, if you look at the Trump White House, they're calling this a favorable deal. They're saying that Russia is treating the U.S. very nicely and really indicating that this is a sign of good faith, that they're going to be able to work forward and do more on the war with Ukraine. But in the Kremlin is saying the same, very much so. And it's going to also, I think, ignite a lot of concerns that perhaps Trump and Putin have what's seen as too cozy of a relationship.
And I want to bring in White House correspondent Karen Travers for a little bit more on that call. Karen, what do you make of this call between Trump and Putin, given the larger context here?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very big call because the president has certainly been hinting in recent days about having conversations with Putin, but has not been pinned down on when those conversations took place, whether it was after he was elected or after he took office. There have been numerous questions put to the president about his contacts with Vladimir Putin. But now the president, in a social media post, confirming that he had a conversation today with the Russian president. And this is a big conversation because of what the president outlines that they discussed. discussed. He said it was about Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, and other subjects. But Ukraine is the big one because the president says that they both agreed that they want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia and Ukraine, and that they both agreed that negotiations should get started to end the war. And the president said that the U.S. and Russia, that he and Vladimir Putin would be working together very closely in order to make this happen. He also says in this post that that includes visiting each other's countries. Diane, that is significant. A U.S. president has not visited Russia since all the way back in September of 2013. That's when then President Obama went to Russia for a World Leaders Summit, and that was 5 months before Russia invaded Crimea. So a lot has changed since then, but that would be very notable if President Trump does in fact make a trip to Russia and if Vladimir Putin comes here to the United States. The president says that he will be having a conversation with Ukraine's President Zelensky to inform him of his call with the Russian president. He indicated that that call would be taking place almost immediately after he got off the phone with Vladimir Putin. And for the negotiation side, the president said that for the United States, it will be Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, his national security advisor, Mike Waltz, and also his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who will be leading the charge for the United States. Witkoff, of course, just returned from Russia because he was involved in that exchange to bring home Mark Fogel.
All right, ABC News State Department reporter Shannon Kingston, big thanks to you.